I give the floor immediately to the candidate, Ms. Ursula von der Leyen.
Thank you, Madam President, dear Roberta. Let me first congratulate you. Let me congratulate you from the bottom of my heart for your renomination. I think your success is a mirror for the outstanding work you've been doing in this House of Democracy. Honourable members, it is now 5 years since I first came to ask for your confidence. 5 years like no other in our union's history. I will always remember the spine-tingling moments we shared here together in this hemicycle. From standing, of course, in front of you asking for your confidence 5 years ago, to proposing Next Generation EU, I will never forget the appearance of President Zelensky at the beginning of the Russian war in Ukraine, when even the translators could not hold back their tears. I will never forget the empty chair poignantly left out for Alexei Navalny as his daughter spoke on his behalf, or the moments of silence for those who lost their life in the pandemic. But also the moments of song for the ode of joy or auld lang syne. And I will never forget the last words of David Sassoli calling for a new and united Europe. Honourable members, choices are the hinges of destiny. And in a world full of adversity, Europe's destiny hinges on what we do next. Despite the momentous things we have done and overcome, Europe now faces a clear choice. A choice which will shape our work for the next 5 years, but it will also define our place in the world for the next 50. The choice comes down to whether we will be shaped by events and the world around us, or whether we will come together and build our future for ourselves. And that choice is ours. Europe cannot control dictators and demagogues across the world, but it can choose to protect its own democracy. Europe cannot determine elections across the world, but it can choose to invest in the security and defense of this continent. Europe cannot stop change, but it can choose to embrace it and invest in a new age of prosperity and improving our quality of life. But, honourable members, for us to choose the Europe of tomorrow, we must acknowledge how people feel today. We are in a period of deep anxiety and uncertainty for Europeans. Families are feeling the pain from the cost of living and housing. Young people are concerned about the planet, their future, and the prospect of war. Companies and farmers are feeling squeezed. And all of this is a symptom of a world in which everything is weaponized and contested, where there is a clear attempt to divide and polarize our societies. I am deeply concerned about these trends, but I'm convinced that Europe, a strong Europe, can rise to the challenge. And this is why I'm asking you for your confidence today, because like you, I came into politics to make a difference for all of society, to deliver for the generation of my children and grandchildren, like those who came before us did. And I am convinced that the version of Europe since the end of World War II with all its imperfections and its inequalities, is still the best version in history. And I will never stand by and watch it be torn apart from the inside or from the outside. I will never let the extreme polarization of our societies become accepted. I will never accept that demagogues and extremists destroy our European way of life. And I stand here today ready to lead the fight with all the democratic forces in this House. And this is the vision I have set out in my political guidelines. A vision of a stronger Europe that delivers prosperity, that protects people, and that defends democracy. A stronger Europe that delivers social fairness and supports people. A stronger Europe that implements what it agrees in a fair way, and that sticks to the targets of the European Green Deal with pragmatism, technology neutrality and innovation. I have listened carefully to the democratic forces in this Parliament, and I am convinced that these guidelines reflect how much we have in common, despite the differences that are healthy in any democracy. So, honourable members, our first priority will be prosperity and competitiveness. In the last 5 years, we have weathered the fiercest storm in our union's economic history. We have emerged stronger from the shock of lockdowns, and we have overcome an unprecedented energy crisis. We did this together, and I believe we can be proud of it. But we also know that our competitiveness needs a major boost. The fundamentals of the global economy are changing. Those who stand still will fall behind. Those who are not competitive will be dependent. So the race is on, and I want Europe to switch gear. And this starts with making business easier and faster. We need to deepen our single market across the board. We need less reporting, less bureaucracy, more trust, better enforcement, more faster permitting. And I will ensure that we are accountable for this, because only what gets measured gets done. And therefore, I will task each commissioner to deep dive in their portfolio and to deliver concretely on burden reduction. And I will appoint a vice president to coordinate this work and to report on progress to this House once a year. I will introduce a revamped SME and competitiveness check as part of our better regulation toolbox. We all know that there is no Europe without small and medium enterprises. They are the heart of our economy. And therefore, let's get rid of burdensome micromanagement. Let's give them more trust, better incentives. Our SMEs deserve it. Honourable members, prosperity and competitiveness. Let me give you some figures. In the first half of this year, 50% of our electricity generation came from renewables, homegrown and clean. Investments in clean technologies in Europe have more than tripled in this mandate. We attract more investments in clean hydrogen than the United States and China combined. In the last years, we have concluded with global partners 35 new agreements on clean tech, hydrogen and critical raw materials. This is the European Green Deal in action. So I want to be clear. We will stay the course on our growth strategy and the goals that were set for 2030 and 2050. Our focus will now be on implementation and investment to make it happen on the ground. And this is why I will put forward a new clean industrial deal in the first 100 days of the next mandate. It will channel investment in infrastructure and industry, in particular for energy-intensive sectors. This will help create lead markets in everything from clean steel to clean tech. It will speed up planning, tendering and permitting. We must be faster and simpler, because Europe is decarbonizing and industrializing at the same time. So our companies need predictability for their investments and their innovation. And yes, they can rely on us. And in this logic, we will enshrine our 90% target for 2040 in our European climate law. Our companies need to plan their investment for the coming decade already today. But this is not only for business, it's also for business, but not only for business. For our young people, the children, the teenagers of today, 2030, 2040, 2050 is just around the corner. They know that we have to reconcile climate protection and a prosperous economy. And they would never forgive us if we do not rise to the challenge. So this is not only a matter of competitiveness, but, honourable members, this is also a matter of intergenerational fairness. The young people deserve that we act on this one. The new Clean Industrial Deal will also help bring down energy bills. We all know that structurally high energy prices hamper our competitiveness. And high energy bills are a major driver of energy poverty of people. I have not forgotten how Putin blackmailed us by cutting us off Russian fossil fuels. But we withstood together. We invested massively in homegrown, cheap renewables. And this enabled us to break free from dirty Russian fossil fuels. Therefore, honourable members, together we will ensure that the era of dependency from Russian fossil fuels is over, once and for all. Honourable members, Europe needs more investment, be it farming or industry, digital or strategic technologies, but also more investment in people and their skills. This mandate has to be the time of investment. And this starts with completing our capital markets union and mobilising more private funding. Every year, 300 billion euros of European family savings go from Europe to foreign markets because our capital markets are too fragmented. And then this money is often used to buy innovative European companies from abroad, and the companies leave. This has to change. We need to leverage this enormous wealth to create growth here in Europe. And this is why we will propose a European Savings and Investments Union. European startups should not need to look at the United States or Asia to finance their expansion. They must find what they need to grow right here in Europe. So we need a deep and liquid capital market, and we need a competition policy that supports companies to scale up. Europe must be again the home of opportunity and of innovation. And honourable members, to unleash private investment, we also need public funding. Yes, we have the resources of Next Generation EU and the current budget, but this will come to an end within the next years, while our investment needs will not. Our new budget will be reinforced. We need more investment capacity. It must be more focused on policy, simpler for member states, and more impactful, so that we can use its power to leverage more private and public financing. And I will propose a new European Competitiveness Fund. It will be focused on common and cross-border European projects that will drive competitiveness and innovation, notably to support the Clean Industrial Deal. It will ensure that we develop strategic tech and manufacture right here in Europe, be it AI or clean tech. The future of our prosperity must be made in Europe. That is clear, and this is something we really have to press on, honourable members. Honourable members, we must also invest more in our security and defence. Russia is still on the offensive in eastern Ukraine. They are banking on a war of attrition, on making the next winter even harsher than the last. Russia is banking on Europe and the West going soft, and some in Europe are playing along. 2 weeks ago, a European Union Prime Minister went to Moscow. This so-called peace mission was nothing but an appeasement mission. This was a plain appeasement mission. Only 2 days later, Putin's jets aimed their missiles at a children's hospital and maternity ward in Kyiv. And we all saw the images of children covered with blood. We saw the mothers trying to bring young cancer patients to safety. That strike was not a mistake. It was a message, a chilling message from the Kremlin to all of us. So, honourable members, our answer has to be just as clear. No one wants peace more than the people of Ukraine, a just and lasting peace for a free and independent country. And Europe will stand with Ukraine for as long as it takes. This is our message. Mesdames et Messieurs les députés,
honourable members, we must give Ukraine everything it needs to resist and emerge victorious. This means that in our future, for the very first time, our liberty is at stake. We are responsible and we must do everything we can to protect European citizens. To protect Europe is our duty. And so I do believe it is now time to build a veritable union of defence. I do know that feel at, but we all know we're too dependent on foreign power, so we need to build a single market for defence. We need to invest more in high-level capacity building, and this means that Europe needs to move forward along the Versailles Declaration pathway. We need to invest more, and we need to invest together. We must build common European projects, for example, a complete air defence system, an air shield. Not only to protect our airspace, but also to send a clear and strong signal of unity, a European unity in the field of defence.
Honourable members, security is not only about external threats. Cyber and hybrid threats are growing. Organised criminal networks are infiltrating our economy. Most of them use corruption. They are causing fear and innocent people's death with their brutal violence. They earn enormous amounts of money from drug trafficking, ransomware, fraud, trafficking in human beings, and they are not limited by national borders. So it's necessary that we respond to this growing threat on a European level. We must make sure that police can work across Europe without borders. That is why I will propose to double Europol's staff and strengthen its mandate. I want Europol to become a truly operational police agency. And we must also do more to secure our external borders. Our eastern border in particular has become a target for hybrid attacks and provocations. Russia is luring migrants from Yemen up north, exploiting their misery and pushing them deliberately against the Finnish border. We should always keep in mind a member state's border is a European border, and we will do everything we can to make them stronger. And this is part of the reason why we must strengthen Frontex, to make it more effective while fully respecting fundamental rights. I will propose to triple the number of European border and coast guards to 30,000. More secure borders will also help us to manage migration in a more structured and fair way. The Migration and Asylum Pact is a huge step forward. We put solidarity at the heart of our common response. Migration challenges need a European response with a fair and firm approach based on our values, always remembering that migrants are human beings like you and me, and all of us. We are protected by human rights. I know that many pessimists thought that migration was too divisive to agree on, but we proved them wrong. Together we made it, and we have emerged stronger from it. Now we must collectively focus on implementation and support member states in making it a reality on the ground, and there will be more to do. We need a common approach on returns to make them more effective and dignified, and we need to develop our comprehensive partnerships, in particular across our southern neighbourhood. The Mediterranean region should get undivided attention. And this is why I will appoint a commissioner for the region and propose a new agenda for the Mediterranean together with Kaja Kallas, because the future of those two Mediterranean shores is one and the same. Honourable members, our neighbourhood is home to our future too. Inviting countries into our union is a moral, a historical, and a political responsibility. It is an enormous geostrategic responsibility for Europe. Because in today's world, a larger union will be a stronger union. It will strengthen our voice in the world. It will help reduce our dependencies. And it will ensure that democracy, prosperity, and stability spread across Europe. We will support candidates by working on investment and reform and integrating them where we can into our legal framework. Accession will always be a merits-based process, and we will ensure that all countries are ready before joining. But completing our union is also in our own core interest, and it will be a core priority for my Commission. I'm deeply convinced history is calling again. The Western Balkans, Ukraine, Moldova and Georgia have made their free choice. They have chosen freedom over oppression. They have chosen democracy over dependency. And some of them are paying a very high price for this choice. So we must do our choice too and show steadfast commitment that their future will be free, will be prosperous, and will be in our European Union. Honourable members, Europe has a responsibility to play an active role in the world, starting in our neighbourhood, and in particular in the Middle East. I want to be very clear. The bloodshed in Gaza must stop now. Too many children, women and civilians have lost their lives as a result of Israel's response to Hamas' brutal terror. The people of Gaza cannot bear anymore, and humanity cannot bear anymore. We need an immediate and enduring ceasefire. We need the release of Israeli hostages, and we need to prepare for the day after. Europe must play its part. We have massively increased our humanitarian aid to almost €200 million in 2024, and we will do more. We are now working on a much larger multi-year package to support an effective Palestinian Authority. The two-state solution is the best way to ensure security for both, to Israelis and Palestinians. And people in the Middle East deserve peace, security and prosperity, and Europe will stand by their side. Meine Damen und Herren Abgeordnete,
Honourable members, Europe offers a unique quality of life when it comes to social security, to highest quality foodstuffs, vineyards, rapeseed oil fields, orchards, fruit orchards. All of this means we enjoy a good quality of life, but we also get a sense of being at home. And that's why the future of our countryside is such a sensitive and important topic for Europe. We need to overcome contradictions and together look for sound solutions. And that is why the strategic dialogue on the future of farming has begun. This will bring together farmers, environmental groups, and experts from right through the food production chain, around one table, and I've promised to listen carefully and to draw important lessons. That is exactly what I will do. I will take on board good recommendations and put together a new strategy for the food and farming sector. I commit to ensuring that farmers across Europe will have a fair income. Nobody should be forced to sell high-quality foodstuffs at below production costs.
Wir müssen die Position und
We must strengthen the position of farmers in their position in the food chain. They need to have access to more capital. Anyone who uses sustainable methods to protect the environment and ecosystems needs to be compensated adequately for that service.
Und unsere Landwirtinnen und Landwirte.
Our farmers shape the landscape. They shape Europe. And they are part and parcel of our culture. They ensure food security. And that is why we are so proud of them. That is why, together, we need to tackle the problems that weigh on their shoulders, climate change, water shortages, which increase year on year. If we look at the catastrophic impacts on forests and rural areas, we're seeing the face of our rural environment changing. We must do more so that together with farmers, we can prepare for what is coming our way as a result of climate change. That is why I will put forward a plan to help us to tackle the adaptation to climate change. And in parallel to this, I want to draw up a strategy on how we manage the precious water resources that we have. It's the key to competitiveness. It's a key that we must focus on and tackle.
Honourable members, our quality of life and our very social fabric are unique. We made historic steps forward on our pillar of social rights, with minimum wages to the first ever child guarantee, just to name a few. During the pandemic, we saved 40 million jobs with SURE, and we can be very proud of it. But many new challenges have emerged, from the impact of AI to mental health at work and new drivers of poverty. So we need a new action plan for the implementation of the pillar. We must ensure fair transitions and good working conditions for workers and self-employed people. And crucial for that is social dialogue, the hallmark of our social market economy. We will therefore work to increase collective bargaining and strengthen the European dialogue, and we will address those issues that Europeans feel the most in their daily lives. Take housing. Europe faces a housing crisis, with people of all age and families of all size affected. Prices and rents are soaring. People are struggling to find affordable homes. This is why, for the first time, I will appoint a commissioner with a direct responsibility for the topic of housing. We will develop a European affordable housing plan to look at all the drivers of the crisis and to help unlock private and public investment needed. Typically, housing is not seen as a European issue. Some might say we should not get involved. But I want this Commission to support people where it matters most, and if it matters to Europeans, then it matters to Europe. Honourable Member, this is how we can strengthen our society. This means ensuring that every region in every part of Europe is supported. No one is left behind. I am committed to a strong cohesion policy designed together with regions and local authorities. I want Europe to be the best place to grow up in and the best place to grow old in. We must enable young people to make the most of Europe's freedom, from a stronger Erasmus+ to more citizens' engagement. But we must also protect young people. Childhood and teenage years are the time when our character is formed, our personality develops, our brain is shaped by triggers and emotions. So this is an amazing time of development, but also a time of real vulnerability. And we see more and more reporting on what some call a mental health crisis. I believe that social media and excessive screen time and addictive practices have played their part. And I must tell you, my heart bleeds when I read about young people harming themselves or even taking their lives because of online abuse. I think of those last moments and the pain they must have felt. I think of their parents and their friends, and this is devastating. So, honourable members, we can never accept this in our society. We will tackle the plague of cyberbullying. We will take action against addictive design of some platforms. And we will convene the first ever European-wide inquiry on the impact of social media on the well-being of young people. We owe it to them, and we will not rest until we've done right to them. And honourable members, one of the most fundamental choices we face is exactly what kind of societies we want for our children and grandchildren, and in particular for our daughters and granddaughters. On women's rights, we have achieved together the unthinkable, thanks to the amazing solidarity in this House of European democracy across all party lines. After 10 years of struggle, we have unblocked the Women on Boards Directive. We have achieved huge progress on pay transparency. And let me tell you, there's not the slightest argument and reason why women should get paid less for the same work than men. But there's still so much to do. Stop the rise in violence against women, reconcile care and career, actually not only for women, but women are mostly affected. Close the pay and pensions gap, because it is no coincidence that poverty in old age has a female face. And there's so much more to do. So let's work together to develop a roadmap for women's rights. Let's keep moving forward. If not now, when then? Mesdames et Messieurs les députés.
Honourable members, democracy is a shared treasure. It is the frame within which all our differences and diversity can express itself. And that frame is fragile as it is precious. For too long, we took it for granted. We got comfortable in our democracy. But today, our democracies are threatened. We've seen a ground war in Ukraine for over 2 years now. And across the Union and within our institutions, our services and journalists, and I wish to thank them for their work today, are uncovering cyber attacks, espionage, corruption, disinformation campaigns carried out by foreign actors, specifically Chinese and Russian actors. Never in the recent decades have we seen as high a level of hybrid attacks and cyber attacks. Within the European Commission, we are fully aware of this situation and are acting in a responsible way for several years now. A huge work of analysis being carried out, and we have established effective tools together with the member states. But we must go further. We must stop hostile foreign actors from interfering in our democratic processes, to undermine them from within in order to destroy them. And in order to do this, we must take strong and decisive measures within Europe. If you place your trust in me today, the Commission will propose a European democracy shield.
L'Union a besoin de sa propre structure.
The Union needs its own structures to fight manipulation of information and foreign interference. This structure will bring together expertise and tie in with national competence and intelligence. The intelligence and action capacities need to be strengthened, as also the sanctions must be strengthened. The shield will take into account recommendations coming from the Special Committee on Foreign Interference. It's crucial that we give the European Union the tools that can fight cyber attacks, that we can impose transparency. We have to have transparency of foreign funding and a reliable framework for the provision of information. And in order to do this, we must support independent journalism. The Union must continue to ensure that we respect the rules of the digital world and continue to support media literacy programs. We can have a more lively democracy, a participative democracy that is alive. And I know I can count on your support to make this grand plan for the defence of European democracy come to life.
But we will also step up our work on defending all parts of our democracy. We will protect free media and civil society. The rule of law and the fight against corruption will be at the heart of our work. We will strengthen all tools and we will step up our enforcement. We will ensure rule of law reports that they focus on the single market dimension to help protect companies. And we will keep a very clear principle in our budget. Respecting the rule of law is a must for EU funds, in this budget and in future. And, honourable members, progress is a constant work we have to do. we need an ambitious reform agenda to ensure the functioning of a larger union and to increase democratic legitimacy. While reforms were necessary before, with enlargement, they become indispensable. So we must use this as a catalyst for change in terms of our capacity to act, our policies and our budget. And we will, of course, focus on what we can already do, and this is a lot, but we should be more ambitious. I believe we need treaty change where it can improve our union. And I want to work on that with this House, and this will be part of a closer partnership between the Commission and the Parliament. I have listened to your demands and concerns. I continue to support your right of initiative, and we will increase our cooperation on Article 225 resolutions to ensure we will follow up. We need to revise the framework agreement to ensure more transparency, more accountability, more presence in the Parliament. When all institutions work together and move together, Europe moves forward. Honourable members, to finish, at the start of this second mandate, his second mandate, Jacques Delors said,
Our community is not merely the fruit of history and necessity, but also of will.
The choice that we face. History is knocking at our doors. The need for Europe will be stronger than ever. Our determination has to match. That is what has brought our continent together. Not the inscrutable forces of fate, but the power of people striving for more. Like the 3 prisoners on Ventotene Island in the 40s, who laid out a vision of a united continent. And like the post-war generation who built peace on coal and steel. People stood unarmed in the face of Soviet tanks, who put carnation into rifles and tore down a wall with their bare hands. People who still risk their life today for this dream called Europe. Generation after generation have made Europe, have chosen a strong Europe. And now that responsibility is up on us. The last 5 years, we have shown what we can do when we work together. So let's do it again. Let us make the choice of strength. Let us make the choice of leadership. Let us make the choice of Europe. Thank you very much, and long live Europe.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much to the candidate for President of the Commission. Now I give the floor to the political group, starting with Manfred Weber for the EPP.
President Metsola, President von der Leyen, Presidency. Dear colleagues, 1 month ago, 180 million Europeans went to the ballot boxes. Never before have so many Europeans voted for the European Parliament. We in this House mirror the political landscape of Europe. And we as EPP, we won the elections. We are the far biggest group in this House, and we have half of the members of the European Council in our family. But we know that European success has never been a one-party show. We are bridge builders. We love the compromise. And since Adenauer, de Gasperi, Schuman, all of them were Christian Democrats, we are convinced Europeans. And we showed already this idea of unity. I mean the vote for our President, Roberta Metsola. She is a great president, and you can understand that we as EPP, we are proud to see her managing and representing our parliament. I thank you all for the great support she got. She truly deserves it. Today, we must do the next step, to vote for Ursula von der Leyen as President of the European Commission. Allow me to present some considerations before we vote. The EPP nominated Ursula von der Leyen as our candidate for the post 4 months ago in Bucharest. She was campaigning, she argued, she defended our programme. She and we as party, we won the elections, and today she is also candidate of the European Council. We had in this chamber so many debates about attacks against European democracy. I tell you, if you want to defend democracy, vote today for Ursula von der Leyen. We know her. She respects our parliament. She was always present when we had discussions. She knows that her power is democratically based on the mandate we give her here. And she knows she is politically also accountable to us. We know her. She is ready to lead. The Green Deal, fundamental and necessary legislation to show the world that we can and must stop climate change. COVID, no first and second class European. Solidarity with the Next Generation EU Fund. And Ukraine, dear friends. She was leading the unconditional support and the clear commitment that one day Ukrainians will sit here with us as colleagues in this European Parliament. Thank you, Ursula, for this clear leadership. And we know her. She is the first female president of the European Commission. We as EPP are proud to present this week 2 strong female candidates for the presidential jobs. We can talk a lot about gender equality for women. I tell you now is a moment to implement it in practice with voting for Ursula von der Leyen. We have to overcome the fears of people, we have to answer the questions, and we have to fulfill their dreams for tomorrow. Next to the strong personalities, the programme, dear colleagues, counts. And allow me to underline 3 EPP priorities. First, we listen to the voters, to the workers in the steel and car manufacturing sectors, the craftsmen, the farmers. And that's why we are happy that Ursula von der Leyen is proposing fair competitiveness and also prosperity as the first chapter of her guidelines. Second, we listen to the people in Ukraine. Putin is a war criminal and we must stop him. Increased support for Ukraine and a European defence pillar, that is what is needed, and Ursula von der Leyen is proposing this. And thirdly, we listen to the people who are afraid about too many illegal migrants. We opened the door for around 3 million Ukrainian refugees. So Europe showed that we stick to the Geneva Convention and to the right of asylum. But still there are too many people illegally crossing our borders, and we have to stop this. We should be deciding about who is entering and not the smugglers. And Ursula von der Leyen is presenting exactly the solutions for us. Her programme, dear colleagues, is the right programme for the next years. Today there is a lot at stake. Europeans want a democratic, not a radical Europe. They want us to work together and to build compromise, not to divide people like Orban, Le Pen and Mélenchon do. Europeans want a united, not a divided Europe. Our friends in America are in deep waters. Putin brings war and wants to divide Europe. Today, we have to send a strong signal of a united and determined Europe. Many of you, dear colleagues, know my personal history. I urge you, vote for Ursula von der Leyen. It's the right choice. The EPP will certainly do so. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And now for the S&D Group, Irache Garcia Perez.
Gracias.
Thank you, President Metsola. Ms. von der Leyen, welcome to the Parliament. Today, we return to the House of European Democracy as a result of the trust that the citizens have placed in us. From this day onwards, we are obliged to continue building the union that the citizens have chosen with the power of their vote, with the power of democracy. Some on the far right would like to return Europe to a Europe of nations which took us to the bloodbaths of the world wars. However, on the 9th of June, a Europe of peace and progress won, and European forces have built this over the past 70 years. The commitment of the S&D family is unwavering. We will be the firewall around the far right across the European Union. Ms von der Leyen. Ms von der Leyen, we face the rise of the far right, and we must look at ourselves. For a long time now, the S&D group has said that if we assume the arguments of the far right, then it will just push us towards a situation where we end progress and freedom. For a long time now, we've been saying that there are far too many people living in poverty without employment and without good quality housing. Ms von der Leyen, the S&D group is a vital force to ensure the governability of the European Union over the coming 5 years. Our support to your presidency will be contingent on offering a project of Europe which puts an end to inequalities and ensures the equality of opportunity. We will never stop pushing for an EU which is at the forefront of the fight against climate change. We have shown that it's possible to have an EU which innovates, which competes, which also gives dignity to workers with new rights and which strengthens public services. A union with a strong social pillar which guarantees a vital minimum income, the right to deconnect teleworking, an anti-poverty strategy, and a commissioner responsible for housing, and that is good news. It's absolutely vital, because access to housing is something which is vital for our citizens. We are firmly committed to housing, and our group will push in this House for a special committee to look at all of the challenges in the area of housing in Europe. No one can hold us back with our ambition to achieve a union of equality between women and men. We want a union which puts an end to all injustice with the European Charter of the Rights of Women. We want to see the revision of pay transparency, and we also want to see gender violence included on the EU's list of crimes. We will achieve our promises with a union which has a strong budget, a union which is possible to address all of these challenges. Above all, we will defend a Europe of peace, human rights and democracy. We want a union which exports its model of peace, which will never accept the scourge of war, either in Ukraine nor in Gaza. We want a courageous union which confiscates the 200 billion euros of public goods to support Ukraine, and also which leads an international peace conference and makes it possible for a true state in Palestine. In conclusion, Ms von der Leyen, you should know which side of history you want to fall on. And you need to stand up to the reactionary forces which push for unsustainable environmental issues, which undermine the LGBTI community, which dehumanises migrants and refugees, and which attacks those who think differently. You need to use European values, and together we can build a Europe together, for the only Europe which is possible, a Europe of social justice. Thank you very much.
Now I give the floor to Jordan Bardella for the Patriots for Europe group.
Madame la Présidente du...
Madam President of the European Parliament, Madam von der Leyen, the European elections of June last has given us some stark lessons that cannot be ignored. Patriotic forces have been strengthened right across the continent, and the centrist, the Greens and others have suffered. People want to defend their identities and democracies. They have said they are not for a punitive ecological policy that harms farmers and harms their livelihoods. They are against the piling up of standards and rules at a time when our commercial naive policies threaten our competitiveness. They are voting in favour of protecting borders. Europeans wish to remain true to themselves and remain themselves. Now, the refusal of the Migration Pact and the statement on that pact would be ignored potentially after the vote. Now, there's the risk of economic downsliding and a risk of migration policy, and also the risk of new AI technologies. The real solution is sovereignty and strategic autonomy for Europe and our nations, for Europe, but also for France. I call on MEPs of this House to make this just one term for Ms. von der Leyen. And so the Patriots for Europe will oppose your renewal of your term.
The ECR Group, Nicola Procaccini.
Grazie, Presidente Metz.
Thank you, Madam Metsola, and congratulations, President von der Leyen. Well, I would like to say straight away that if you expect an indication as to how to vote on behalf of the ECR, well, our parliamentary group is made up of political parties that need to take account of their national prerogatives, and each and every one of us will speak on the basis of our national interests. We're conservatives because we defend the values that have forged Europe and the Western civilization. Because different to others, we defend the treaties, the founding treaties of the Union. And it is clearly indicated that the choice of the President of the Commission in the light of the results of European elections, well, this is in the hands of national governments and then is ratified by the European Parliament. Mrs. von der Leyen, 4 days ago, it was written that your destiny is not in the hands of the EPP or the European Conservatives or of the Brothers of Italy, but it depends on the elections of a few days ago. The Greens, the Socialists, such as Timmermans, but even the Liberals that have seriously lost because of the decline of Macron's party. You can see that something is not quite right. We've got nothing against you, but during your mandate, you've had to try and save the left. The Parliament and the Commission 5 years ago were in the hands of a left majority. But this is no longer true today, thanks to the European elections, but also thanks to the national elections held in many countries of the European Union. Our European citizens have wanted to support the centre-right ideas. And I think you need to keep this in mind. We will be who we've always been. We are firm in our principles. Just as that young university student of the Italian right, who's become a symbol of the justice which you, President Metsola, you mentioned a few days ago, and it is the anniversary of his serious and terrible killing, Paolo Mozzolini. Paraphrasing one of his most well-known sentences, it is good to live along one's own beliefs. Thank you.
To Europe Group, Valérie Ayer.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam President, or a candidate. I can tell you quite clearly there are many other pro-Europeans in this hemicycle. Europeans spoke quite clearly on the 9th of June. They have clearly returned a pro-European majority to this House. And now this is not good news for those who want to paint it differently. Ms. von der Leyen, Freedom is at the basement, is the foundation of Europe, and it's what guides us. Through this freedom, we have our fundamental values. Freedom to be who we want to be, to love who we want, to freedom to work, to set up businesses, to live in a healthy environment. Freedom, that's at the heart of Europe, and it's the heart of our future. Our roadmap for the next 5 years is clear. Our expectations, the expectations of Renew Europe, only aim to allow Europeans to exercise their freedoms, and this is set out in 4 different areas. Firstly, European values, the rule of law. We all know that today in Europe there are leaders who do not respect our basic democratic values. I'm going to say that quite clearly. The leading candidate here is Viktor Orban. You have the you have the power to launch Article 7. You can also strengthen the conditionality mechanism. It's now time to act. But our values don't only apply to our institutions. We can see it across Europe, people trying to backslide when it comes to fundamental values. So I'd ask you to do everything you can to ensure that the right to abortion is included in the European Charter of Fundamental Rights. And second priority is as follows. The economy.
This is the third time you've done this. I ask that the member is taken out of the room. Let me repeat. I ask that the member is taken out of the room now. Do I have to say it again? I would ask you also not to shout at the ushers. How many colleagues need to come and escort you out of the room? I think you've spoken enough. Madame Ayer. Madame Ayer, tu peux continuer.
You may continue. Thank you, Madam President. I think that proves that it's absolutely vital and urgent to defend the right to abortion across Europe. The second priority area.
Deuxième priorité, l'économie.
Secondly, the economy. From you, Ms. von der Leyen, we want you to act for the prosperity of Europe. It needs a three-way approach: simplification, investment and innovation. We need to simplify the life for entrepreneurs and SMEs. We need to accelerate investments and certain projects. And in order to do so, we need a European law for acceleration to speed up the issuance of permits. We also need to speed up the European capital market so we can decouple investments and savings. We need to rebuild our factories. We need to make Europe a space for excellence and innovation. We need cutting-edge technology which serves our strategic autonomy. And within our industrial priorities, there's also defence. You mentioned it, and I'll come to it. Thirdly, Europe needs to be able to defend itself. This is not just a thought exercise. This is absolutely vital. We need to strengthen the European Defence Fund, and that's needed, something we'll see tomorrow with the presentation of the multi-annual financial framework. We should invest so that we can have a true European defence market. The US has one type of tank. In Europe, we have 17. How can we be effective when we're so fragmented? It's not only us who needs to act here. We've promised the Ukrainian people who continue to fight the Russian invasion that we will support them for as long as it takes. You said this yourself, but we need to move beyond that. We need to be there as soon as possible. Finally, another threat faces us, climate change. So we ask you clearly, do not take a step back from the green agenda. Do not move away from the green agenda. Let's put an end to fossil fuels. We need a climate adaptation pact. We need to support houses. We need to support households and businesses with a just transition fund. We cannot forget the farmers, which have been hit by crises over recent times. We have responded with the necessary measures, and now we need to move forward with structural measures in relation to prices and unfair competition, as you mentioned. That's what we expect from you, Ms von der Leyen. There are huge tasks ahead of us, but we are determined to achieve these aims, because together, for the past 5 years, you and us together, we've been able to do so. We've protected Europeans from the pandemic, and we've come up with a recovery plan. We have pushed our economy to the 21st century. We adopted the Asylum and Migration Pact, and we've put Europe on a path towards decarbonisation. We've listened to you this morning, Ms von der Leyen. Your roadmap is very much in line with the ambitions of our political group. We will always be a demanding partner, but also a reliable partner. Our demands are clear. We just want to focus on the best interests of the Europeans, and that's something we think you share, and we will work together.
Now of the Green Group to Terry Reintke.
Thank you, President. Dear candidate for the Commission presidency, dear colleagues, we are at a decisive moment for the future of the European Union. Today's vote will be one important step in setting the course for the next 5 years in Europe. We all know that the challenges ahead of us are huge, and this places an enormous responsibility on our shoulders. We see right now that climate change already today affects us all. This summer shows it once again. Parts of Europe are withering in the heat. In other regions, entire livelihoods are being destroyed in the floods. Not continuing on the path towards climate neutrality right now, taking detours or even pausing would be the completely wrong thing to do. Colleagues, we cannot backtrack on the Green Deal. We need to go the next step. We need a climate adaptation law to make us more resilient and, for example, protect our critical water supplies. The Green Deal is about nothing less than our survival on this planet, and we should treat it with the needed seriousness. Colleagues, the green transition is the greatest challenge of our generation. In order to maintain our prosperity, we need to massively invest in greening our industries. Those who say that it's either about tackling climate change or about fostering our competitiveness are simply wrong. We need to do both at the same time, and with it create millions of green jobs in the European Union. We have seen thousands of farmers that are taking to the streets because they can no longer make a living from their hard work. These farmers need to get a decent revenue. At the same time, we need to make EU agriculture more resilient to climate change and biodiversity loss. We need to strengthen animal welfare in the European Union, and we have to finally ensure that small farmers get their fair share of EU agricultural subsidies. Farmers deserve better than the current rules in the common agricultural policy. Colleagues, let us reform the CAP in this mandate. This European Union needs to be a social union. The effects of the pandemic, our long-standing energy dependency on fossil fuels, in the brutal war in Ukraine, the cost of living crisis hit many people very hard. We cannot leave them alone. Everybody has to be able to make a decent living. We need to provide dignity for all European citizens. Because it is right, but also because history has shown that rising social inequality is a threat to our societies and to democracy itself. So for the working people in Europe, we have to send a very clear message today. Exploitation can never be a business model in Europe. Decent income and fair working conditions are our duty to the working people on this beautiful continent. There is one fundament, colleagues, of this union that cannot be negotiated on, our common European values. Too many governments in the European Union right now are attacking this foundation of rule of law and fundamental rights. And they are even using EU funds to strengthen their authoritarian grip on society. And honestly, the last Commission has too often waited for far too long to do something about this. This has to change. Every single EU citizen, no matter in which member states, deserves their rights for rule of law and fundamental rights to be defended. This has to be a Commission, colleagues, for everyone in Europe, because whether you are black, Muslim, Jewish, Roma, queer or disabled, Europe is your home, and this union is built on exactly this promise of equality. Colleagues, we live in a changing world. European foreign, defence and security policy has been far too fragmented in the last decades, ever too often. It weakens us all, especially with Putin's servant right now at the Council presidency. We have to make sure that we are changing this and build a strong, united, ready-to-act European Union by ending unanimity votes in Council. Let's take away the veto right so that we are all stronger together. Colleagues, we have a shared responsibility ahead of us. We see that there is a lot at stake. And if you ask me, is Ursula von der Leyen a green candidate to be Commission President, or is this a green program that she has provided us with the political guidelines? I can tell you no. We have negotiated hard. We have made compromise over these past weeks. And for me, what is crucial is that the majority that holds today is a majority of pro-European democratic groups in this House, because we need to keep the far right from getting into power, from having impact on the policy making in this European Union. We know that we are stronger when we work together as pro-Europeans. Let us keep this promise to our citizens and constructively work together and build a better European future for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I give the floor now to Manon Aubry on behalf of the Left Group.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, President. Ms. von der Leyen, your speech shows just how much you hold the people in disdain. I listened to you. Not once did you talk about poverty, unemployment. You talked about competitiveness, prosperity, to please businesses. Ms. von der Leyen, I know that you earn more than 30,000 a month, but 1 in 3 Europeans has to skip meals. Once more, people will not be able to afford to go on holiday this summer because their bank balance won't allow it. So please, climb down from your ivory tower and see the reality. We can't afford to have yet another term run by and give you yet another term. We have the multinationals, the millionaires who are driving up the cost of our shopping carts. Are we going to please them? Are you going to tackle climate change? No. We have unambitious measures, greenwashing. Have you protected farmers and industry in the face of international competition? No. You supported free trade agreements? Did you support public services? No. You strengthened austerity rules that damaged them. Did you act to defend transparency when in the face of lobbying? No. And indeed, recently, we've just heard the court ruling come through on the handling of COVID vaccines. Ms. von der Leyen, you shouldn't even be coming here today. You should be before the judges. Did you make the voice of peace ring out? You talk about support, stopping the bloodbath in the Gaza Strip. But the fact is, you didn't stand up to Benjamin Netanyahu, who is the perpetrator of a genocide in the Gaza Strip. And that is your legacy, Ms. von der Leyen, because you refuse to take the actions that need to be taken. Have you defended the human rights of people in exile? No. Where is the Europe of solidarity? You have built a Europe of barbed wire. So that is the real legacy, Ms. von der Leyen. And the consequence is the rise, unprecedented rise of the far right. And should we have yet another 5 years of this when we have an alternative that is possible on the left? You do not fight the far right by taking on its ideas. You fight against fascism if you stand up to it. You don't give in. Ms. von der Leyen, we know that if you're elected to it, it'll be just because of small deals being done by friends in back rooms. But citizens want clarity. Our group will not support this game, and we will call for clarity on climate change, for women's rights, fundamental rights, and peace. And yes, of course, as we did in the past 5 years, we will support any text that goes in this direction. We know that this is not just about words, it's about actions. And I'm wrapping up. We refuse to participate in this masquerade. And the vote of the left will go against your re-election, Ms. von der Leyen, against austerity policies and pro-market policies, and we will be supporting unity and solidarity. Thank you.
In group to Madam Eva Zajackowska-Hernik.
Madam President, ladies and gentlemen, Ursula, dear Ursula, I think you need to hear in a straightforward way what most Europeans think about you. Choosing you to be the President of the European Commission in the previous term of office was a great mistake, and some still have a hangover because of it. You destroy the European economy and agriculture. Europe becomes an open-air museum in terms of agriculture. Us Europeans are becoming poorer and poorer because of you. You are the face of the Migration Pact, and I'm talking to you as a woman to a woman, as a mother to a mother. How can you not be ashamed of promoting the Migration Pact, which means that millions of women and children in Europe feel endangered, threatened on the streets of their cities? You are responsible for every rape, every violent attack, every tragedy caused by illegal migrants, because you are inviting them to come to Europe. And for what you're doing, you should actually go to prison and not to the European Commission. Your presence as the President of the European Commission means a further collapse of the European Union. What do we think about your European Green Deal? This is what we think about this. This is what we think about the Migration Pact. You're not even looking at me. That's a shame. We want a Europe of free and sovereign nations, and not a sick leftist ideology. And all the soldiers that are defending the eastern border, deserve a bow, a very deep bow from you.
On that note, I invite Ms. von der Leyen to respond. to most of the interventions.
Honourable members, thank you very much for a very lively debate, which shows the vitality of our European democracy. In recent months, our political families have laid out their different programmes for Europe. And I think it was a heated but fair electoral campaign. And for the second time in a row, the turnout in European elections went up, reversing decades of decline. The people of Europe have shown that they care and that they want to make their voice heard. This is a good sign for European democracy. But we must also be very clear-eyed about the dangers that our democracy faces. Our societies are polarized more than at any time since the end of the Cold War. And let me be very clear. We will always defend freedom. But freedom does not mean to have the right to take it all. Not the one who screams the loudest or is the most disrespectful has the right of might. It is the rule of law and respect that unites us. And thank you for the show of wide support in this House of Democracy, for the respect for each other as the foundation of democracy. And this respect is something that we can only build together across all political divides and party lines, because this is how we sort out differences in our democracies, not with screaming and yelling and disrespect and violence, but with votes, not by feeding divisions, but by bridging them with dialogue. And over the last month, I've listened to all the democratic forces in this parliament in the spirit of dialogue and respect. And this is reflected in the political guidelines that I have just presented. Now it is time for the democratic forces to come together and to move Europe forward, because there's so much more that unites us than divides us. And this is the essence of Europe. That is the story of Europe. We are united in diversity and in adversity. And let me conclude with the last public words that my friend David Sassoli addressed to Europeans just days before he passed away. La speranza.
I mean, the hope is in our hands.
Are our best hope in a dangerous world. And today, Europe's hope rests on your hands, the democratic forces. Thank you, and long live Europe.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to Jeroen Lenners. 1.5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam President, Madam von der Leyen. My message here today is fairly simple. In a world in turmoil, Europe needs to be strong, united, and independent. We need to wake up and we need to grow up urgently. Strategic autonomy is not a theoretical exercise. It is a precondition for delivering on our citizens' expectations, because they have sent us a clear message at these elections, and we must answer. And that means, first and foremost, investing in our security, keeping all of us safe, but also keeping life for Europeans affordable when it comes to issues like housing, food and energy, without depending on dictators abroad. Strengthening Europe's competitiveness, protecting our values and fighting for democracy and rule of law, manage migration and protecting our borders, continue to our work towards climate neutrality in a smart and inclusive way. But also, very importantly, in a specific area like medicine. Millions of Europeans depend on important medications, and this dependence is simply unsustainable. We must be able to produce the medicines we need within our own borders. We can no longer afford to be dependent on other powers in any strategic sector. Dependency only brings vulnerability. So the task ahead is clear. It's not an easy task, but at least it's clear. The strategy is there. What we now need is stability and strong leadership. And leadership and stability that you, President von der Leyen, have shown over the past 5 years. So we put our trust today in you to lead Europe on this path to maturity. And you can count on our support along the way. Thank you.
Thank you. Adesso, onorevole Lauretti.
I'd now like to give the floor to Mrs. Lauretti. A minute and a half. Thank you, Madam President. Mrs. von der Leyen, the Strategic Agenda 24-29 clearly calls on the issues of democracy and the rule of law and to act upon this. It's not just Orban who seems to be boycotting this. We want to talk to you about the programme of the future Commission, but we don't want any kind of agreement with the sovereign nations. I think if you search for their support, it's going to cost you a lot, not just today, but also in the future. When we look at the agenda, we look at industry, competitiveness, new technology, new types of work, new markets to have a green transition and a digital transition. We've asked for a Green Industrial Act, we socialists, but also more in public investment to be competitive. Europe needs to pursue the common investments which have been lined out by Next Generation. We need to have a fair transition for companies, for workers and farmers. The social pillar calls for us to make further progress, to look at the directive on minimum wages and also to abolish free traineeships. We've also said no to outsourcing beyond our borders. That is, each country needs to do its job on the question of immigration. If not, we're just playing into the hands of those who are trafficking in human beings. And we would also like to take a close look at the commissioners who will be appointed. And all citizens in Europe are waiting for many answers. Thank you.
Madam President, Madam von der Leyen, Europe is much weaker today than 5 years ago. I will list all the decisions which weakened the interests of European citizens. You have taken no concrete steps for peace towards peace. Europe is getting closer and closer to war. You signed up to a bad migration pact instead of protecting borders. You didn't protect our children. You forced gender ideology. You are harming European farmers. You are undermining European competitiveness. You signed vaccine production contracts that were suspicious of corruption. You are weakening, as we've heard, you are planning to continue to weaken the sovereignty of member states. You were using the principle of rule of law for political blackmail and also the money that is due to Hungary. You are using double standards. You have done that for the past 5 years. This was practically part of your policy against certain governments. You have been using EU institutions to boycott Hungarian presidency, and this undermines European cooperation. And therefore, us European patriots will not support you at the vote today. We need change.
Thank you. We will give the floor now to Joachim Brusinski, 2.5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President of the European Commission, we can, of course, enchant reality, but everyone sees what state the EU is in. Europe is in crisis. There is less and less trust towards other institutions. Life conditions are worse and worse. Cost of living is rising, and it will continue to rise because the liberal establishment prefers to remain deluded that they can save the planet by the climate policy that they are pursuing. But instead, it will be an economic suicide. companies are fleeing our continent. Desperate farmers are demonstrating in the streets. We do not count anymore as a player in the world. Dear Ursula von der Leyen, you were a very weak president, if not the worst. As the ECR, we supported your candidature 5 years ago, but we were by no means enthusiasts. We took that decision choosing the lesser evil because at that time the other candidate was Franz Timmermans. I remember the meeting with you when you were trying to cheat us with all kinds of promises, but we will not be cheated today. You took very narrow decisions in a narrow group of German councillors. There was no cooperation with commissioners. You had too high ambitions. This is your style of work. You were not truthful either because you cheated polls for a very long time about the recovery plan. You promised in conversations with the Polish president that you would unblock the funds, and then you didn't do it. Transparency was not your strength either. We remember your conversations with the head of Pfizer. You treated my country in a very unjust way. You should be impartial as the President of the Commission, but you were definitely partial and you supported the then opposition. You wanted the government to be changed in Poland by blocking the recovery funds or starting the Article 7 procedure. That was an outrageous interference in the internal affairs of the country. The lack of rule of law during the government of the peace of justice was complete hypocrisy. The current government has taken over public media. Right now, they are working in the prosecution office and in different courts. Women who got arrested are tortured in order to testify. Where are all the feminists who were defending women's rights? Ladies and gentlemen, you closed the Article 7 procedure. No acts of law in Poland were changed, only the Prime Minister. And now it's your colleague, Mr. Tusk.
Again, Brandy, 1.5 minutes.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam President, dear colleagues. Democracy at its core is about trust. And today, Mrs. von der Leyen seeks our trust to wield power in Europe's name. And on behalf of Renew Europe, let me be fair and honest. This is not an easy choice. Mrs. von der Leyen, you have given us reason to trust you when you heeded the call of millions of Europeans and started acting on the climate crisis. But you have tested our trust when you turned your back on nature. European citizens, including farmers, need protection against extreme weather and the mass extinction of life on our planet. Will you uphold the Green Deal, including all its original ambition to protect the natural world? And to be honest, your guidelines are strong on climate, but again, weak on biodiversity. You are a pro-European Democrat, and your party, which you lead, has won the European elections. We are ready to give you a second chance, but not a carte blanche. Mrs. von der Leyen, will you not only talk like a Democrat, but act like one as well? And our President, Roberta Metsola, just showed that only a firm hand works with extremists. European citizens need your protection against national leaders tearing the fabric of our values apart. Will you finally stand up to them? And if so, you will have our votes and our trust. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, Lee Anderson, 1 minute.
Arvoisa puhemies. Madam President, Madam von der Leyen, the results of the European Parliament election should be a wake-up call for everybody who is committed to human rights in the European Union. Now it's the high time to find the right solutions to those concerns, those worries that people are struggling with in Europe. Prices are going up, fewer and fewer have enough money and the austerity policy will strangle those with low incomes. Now we have to invest in fair working conditions, employment conditions. We have to fight poverty. We have to find affordable housing to people. These are important objectives, but strategies, seminars, beautiful words are not enough. We also need to use our legislative power, and therefore my question to you is that where are the concrete actions to assure health and safety at work, due diligence and others, these socially just initiatives? Thank you.
Sarah Knafo, 1 minute.
Madame la Présidente.
Madam President, today, irrespective of your party or nationality, tell the people of Europe who you really are. Are you really at their service, or are you just their commanders? Do you really believe in their creativity, their intelligence, and in their future? I ask Ms. von der Leyen, what have Europeans done to be treated in this way? You haven't kept your promises, Ms. von der Leyen, but you have a track record. So, we vote no on 3 counts. No for those who defend liberty. No on behalf of those who guarantee prosperity. And no because we want to support those who protect Europe, not those who expose them to Islamization and immigration. So no, no, and no. Don't be a politician, be a European.
Merci. Now I give the floor to Judita Lasakova. 1.5 minutes.
Vážená pani predsedníčka, vážení prítomní, pani Ursula.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Mrs. von der Leyen. In 2019, you became Commissioner, and you were the result of the fight of women, and I think you were the follower of Emila Bankers, and I thought you were going to take advantage of this. But when I look at the success of Eleanor Roosevelt, and she was just a first lady, today you're a huge disappointment. Not simply because of the decisions of the court. The Commission, under your leadership, is a disappointment. In Slovakia, Kugashenko has not received any lung ventilation, and that is the cause of his death. And you're a doctor, so surely if you're preventing people from surviving, well, people's lives need to be protected. And unless we approved put an end to his life. But this time the Commission has drawn an attention to the violation of human rights, and this at the end of the day led to this death. I'm afraid we cannot support you, Mrs. von der Leyen, because it's disrespectful towards women who protect human rights. Thank you.
Gracias, Presidenta Metsola.
Thank you, President Metsola, President von der Leyen. Honourable members, the European People's Party won the elections, and that's why we should be leading the European institutions with the President Ursula von der Leyen. The challenges are growing. Some citizens now don't trust the EU. If we ignore this, then we will be making a fatal error. That's why Europe needs to move forward. We need to drive it forward. We need to complete the single market. We need a competitive strategy which reduces bureaucracy for businesses, above all for SMEs and freelancers. We need to improve technological innovation, focusing on the creation of quality employment. We also need to support strategic sectors such as fisheries and agriculture. And clearly, we need to strengthen our health systems. We need to put people and families at the heart of our efforts. It's also important to strengthen our economy, but we have to strengthen our values and strengthen the rule of law. That's why it's unacceptable that certain governments support specific people. It's why we're putting. We cannot accept that judges are being instructed to take certain investigations. So this is something that is happening. This is an anomaly here in Europe. The future of Europe, the success of the European Union will depend on what we do for the economy, but also how we defend our democracy. We need to do this together. It's our obligation as European democrats. That's why you have our trust, President von der Leyen.
René Repazi, 1 minute.
Madam President, Ms von der Leyen, dear colleagues, the most noble task of the European Commission is to protect Europe against internal and external enemies. The enemies from within should not be underestimated. Some of them come openly objecting, but others may seem cooperative, but are doing things differently at home. We want to fight against this with a policy on equality. It's about shouldering responsibility, and that begins today and ends in 5 years' time. We need to make sure that pro-European and democratic forces come together. You and the EPP must resist the temptation to seek simple, easy majorities to the right. Any concession to the far right, I believe you must reject and continue to do so. Ms von der Leyen, the supporters of Europe are in this House. They're not in Council. They are to the left of the EPP, not to the right. And that is what we will assess you by, and that is what you will be judged upon in 5 years' time.
1.5 minutes.
Vážená paní předsedkyně, vážení kolegové.
President, colleagues. Well, today we're here in the European Parliament and we're sitting here all together and we were all elected democratically and therefore we represent the millions of voters who have different opinions. Madam President, during your mandate, you really imposed a huge number of ecological measures which reduce the quality of life of our citizens and actually deteriorates the situation of our companies. In all of this in the name of climate. But climate is global, and basically the results of this policy leads us to be more dependent on third countries, and we have too much regulation. Citizens want a strong, competitive Europe, and the objective of the Commission, therefore, is to find common paths to achieve these results across all member states. But I think here you're playing chess. You've simply decided that those against you don't exist, and that Europe needs certainties. You tell us that your path is the only correct path, and those of us who disagree are against Europe. That's a simplification, and it's a dangerous logic, because it undermines the foundations of our union. What about our common slogan? The European Union united in diversity, the European Union based on tolerance and the principles of respect and democracy. But you are trying to achieve by bending towards those who didn't really support you. She has been interrupted by the President. Next speaker, Charlie Rallamy.
Fru talman, fru von...
Thank you, Madam President. Ms von der Leyen, European voters have sent a very clear message. They have voted for a centre-right majority in the European Parliament. However, Ms von der Leyen, you and the EPP party have chosen to turn to the left, and we've seen the results of that. You didn't use the word nuclear in your speech. After 5 years of focusing on wind turbines, you didn't mention nuclear. You didn't mention crimes which are committed by illegal migrants in Europe. The Migration Pact was adopted during the previous mandate. It doesn't go far enough. You speak about health and housing policy. In order to do this, we need to change the treaties. You have a centre-left programme, a green programme that you've presented. We can't accept it. Thank you.
Ada, 1.5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam President of the European Parliament, dear Roberta, Frau von der Leyen, distinguished guests, fellow MEPs. Today we are not choosing only a President of the European Commission and its political guidelines. I think we are actually choosing a destination and a path to that destination. We are choosing where we want Europe to be in 5 years' time, and we are choosing what measures will take us there. Because in 5 years' time, we will be held to account by our voters, and we'll have to tell them if we've chose the right destination, if Europe will once again be the beacon of freedom in the world, if Europe will be again a haven of peace and security or the land of opportunity and prosperity. And they will ask us if we chose the right path. Did we hear the legitimate concerns of our citizens? Did we make up the difficult choices that we have to make and the difficult reforms that we have to make to meet these concerns? And did we recognize, above all, that sustainable economic growth is the first priority in order to provide resources to meet all other challenges? These political times give us, all of us, an historical responsibility to provide decisive political leadership that will ensure we keep on the path to the right destination. Frau von der Leyen, my question to you is that if you are conscious of this responsibility and if you are prepared to discharge it together with this Parliament. Because from Renew, from the Liberals, you know what to expect. Loyal, constructive, but demanding cooperation to make sure that Europe keeps on the right path, reaches tonight the right destination. Let's get it done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Obrigado.
I give the floor now to Lynn Boylan. 1 minute.
The rule of law is the glue that binds our union together. Those are your words, Madam von der Leyen. So why is it that in your eyes some people are more equal in law than others? Why is it that human rights are applicable in some conflicts but not others? Why are the lives of Palestinians not worthy of the same human rights, the same international law, the same humanity? We are witnessing the most documented genocide in history, and still there are no consequences for Israel. When you declared Europe stands with Israel, when you stood shoulder to shoulder with Netanyahu, you green-lighted this genocide. The double standards, the hypocrisy with how you reacted to the conflict in Ukraine compared to Gaza has done untold damage on the world stage to the European Union. There has been no sanctions, no suspension of trade. In fact, EU money and arms continues to flow to Israel. 40,000 civilians slaughtered, children burned alive in their tents, and still no consequences. Colleagues, today, say no to genocide and say no to von der Leyen.
I give the floor next to Christine Anderson. 1 minute.
Thank you, Frau von der Leyen. Sie sind eine Schande.
Thank you, Mrs. von der Leyen. You're a shame for any democracy. The 5 years of your term in office were more than enough. Green Deal, Fit for 55, and all these programs, you're making the life of citizens of the EU impossible. You are getting rid of democracy and freedom and censorship. That is your policy. You should be ashamed of yourself, Mrs. von der Leyen. With your Pfizer friends, you signed this contract for billions of euros, which has been damaging in many cases and, as a matter of fact, caused the death of people. So, again, you should be ashamed of yourself. And even yesterday, the ECJ has punished you because you shouldn't have kept those contracts secret. And I think if you had any decency at all, you shouldn't really be a candidate at all. You shouldn't stand as a candidate, but actually disappear. But you are the president of the Commission and not president of the corruption. So you should feel very ashamed.
I give the floor next to Andrzej Halicki. 1.5 minutes.
Szanowni Państwo.
Ladies and gentlemen, those elected in our countries, we represent 27 societies. But just as myself in Poland, just as you, when you talk to your voters, you had the same question over and over again. How to build a stronger security, how to guarantee more security, the physical security, the protection of borders, a reinforced Frontex, common armament market. We need to have more common policies because Europe is living a dangerous time. There is a war in our continent, energy security, energy union, economic security, health. COVID showed us what huge task it is. Social security, because reforms need to be wise and accepted. Food security, the protection of European agriculture. These are the tasks for the next 5 years. Security will be mentioned over and over again as a task, as a priority, as an expectation. I would like us to be united in that task because enemies of a more secure and stronger Europe are not asleep. They're also present in this room. Let's be strong and determined for Europe to become more secure thanks to our good cooperation. We need to listen to one another. We are different, but let's remember that we live in troubled times. Disinformation is another element of the war. Cybersecurity, another dimension of security. I appeal to you, let's stick together, let's build a stronger, more secure Europe, and we will win against our enemies who are not asleep.
Glucksmann, 1 minute.
Merci, Présidente. Thank you, Madam President. Colleagues, Putin is attacking our democracies. Trump might be re-elected as president in the US, and across Europe we can see the far-right allies progressing. This is a turning point. We have a collective responsibility. We, Social Democrats in Europe, will be there to stop the enemies of democracy. We will build a stronger Europe so that we're not dependent on other countries. We want a Europe which defends the green agenda and a Europe that replans its industry. We want a housing plan for Europe. We want equality between women and men, and we will defend the rights of minorities. We want a Europe which finally is green, which shows solidarity and democratic. We will create this Europe, and we will be there. We'll be relentless in doing so. We will ensure that necessary funds and legislation follows these words. We will be here. We will be those who support the democratic power, which is European and green, and something that we truly need.
Now to Harald Wilimski.
Frau von der Leyen, es gibt im
Ms. von der Leyen, in a political life, there's always that point you reach when you say, it's enough. It's time to stop. Please, believe me, that time has come now for you. Just a few examples. Corona nonsense that you were responsible for, where you took the lead. 8.4 billion doses of vaccine were purchased, and the courts are busy with it, and the I'm very pleased that Mr. Hauser, my new colleague in the EP, will be leading investigations in this sector. Second, Ukraine, Russia, where we've imposed up to 14 sanctions packets. We're seeing death being perpetuated, and the only person, Viktor Orban, who will be taking over the Council presidency, speaking out for peace and trying to talk about finding ways to put an end to this killing. All I can say, Ms. von der Leyen, please hear this call. Your time is up. Give Europe a chance for a better future.
I give the floor now to Asita Kanko. 1 minute.
Thank you, Madam President, Madam Candidate. I am a woman, I am a mother, I am European. Nobody is going to take this away from me. These are words from Giorgia Meloni, words who touch my heart. I feel the same as a European by choice. As a woman, as a mother, and as a member of this parliament, I feel you too, Madam von der Leyen. Like many of us, I cannot unsee the sofa hate and the fact that one of the 3 most powerful women inside the EU had to struggle for a chair. Women in politics are still challenged and over-scrutinized, requested permanently to be perfect. If they show ambition, they are arrogant. If they stand for themselves, they are extremists. If they follow and let go of who they are ignored. Of course, Madam von der Leyen, you are not perfect, but who is? None of us. However, the price of imperfection is much higher when you are a woman. Barroso and Juncker received a clear discount. If you make it today, I count on you to deliver. On nuclear energy and defense ecosystem for Europe, on the protection of our European businesses against certain aspects of the Green Deal, you must deliver. On the geopolitical commission you promised, you must deliver. On migration policy, one step forward is not enough. You must deliver more. On women's rights, rape crimes cannot stay out of scope. You must deliver. On the bleeding Middle East, the forgotten acceleration, the protection of our European values, and the fight against radical Islam and anti-Semitism, you must sustain. Will you? One way to find out. Thank you.
Next, Thomas Tobé, 1.5 minutes.
Madam President, colleagues, today is a choice between political stability or division, between leadership or political chaos. Today I'm urging all colleagues of this House to vote in favour of Madame von der Leyen as President of the Commission, because seriously, we face grave challenges ahead. There is a war on our continent. There are great uncertainty about the possibility of a new administration in the US, and at home we still have to face issues such as migration, climate and competitiveness. To overcome these challenges, we need political stability. Any other outcome of the vote today would mean the opposite. It would be a gift for Putin and for Orban. We cannot waste any time. We have to get to work. From the EPP group, I would especially like to highlight that we are pleased to see that we will finally deliver on a common European response in the fight against organised crime. This must be a top priority in the coming 5 years. And most importantly, we have to continue to stand with Ukraine for as long as it takes. And on that, I know that Ukraine, Sweden and EPP knows that we can count on you, Ursula. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Tobé, now Vice President Negrescu. 1 minute.
Madam President, colleagues, we are today in front of a key vote for the next European Commission. But I also must say for how we would like to see the future of Europe. After seeing what happened today in the plenary, our Romanian PSD delegation calls for responsibility, while also underlining the priorities we have for the future Commission. We strongly believe more needs to be done in enabling this year the full accession of Romania to the Schengen area. We also want to emphasize the need for better policies allowing Europe to remain an economic leader, competitive with a strong industry, dynamic SMEs, and an adequate budget for the challenges we face. And we believe we can actively contribute to that. Last but not least, we need more support for farmers, rural areas and local investment. Equal pay for equal work also means fair subsidies for our farmers, while the cohesion policy needs to remain at the core of regional development. We want a Commission that is in contact with citizens and providing solutions to their need for better living conditions, and we believe we can work with you in doing that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, Jorge Buxade Villalba. 1 minute.
Gracias, Presidente. Thank you, Madam Chair, President. Candidate, more than 230,000 illegal immigrants entered Spain, and they didn't really just come by coincidence. It's because we've attracted them. And what you want to do is just spread them across Europe so that we don't notice them. You're exploiting workers, money for the employers by protecting the environment. There's been a mass redundancy plan. You force farmers to come and demonstrate because they're in a state of misery. Brussels has given 600 million euros to Moroccan producers, farmers, and we've had a lot of health alerts because of this type of imports. And the food sovereignty and food security of Spain have been endangered. And you've also supported Pedro Sanchez as far as legal independence is concerned and other issues so that you get his support in council. So we have no single reason to vote for you, but it's obviously clear that S&D, EPP and Greens will support you until the very end.
1.5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, President von der Leyen, dear colleagues, the world is looking at us today. This is why I say, let us rise to our task today. Today is a day to put differences aside. Today is a day to be united and aware of our responsibility. Today, we need to defend Europe from those who take their orders from Moscow and Beijing. And with Ursula von der Leyen, we have a candidate ready to serve Europe, and we have a program which reflects the priorities of all those who believe in a strong and united European Union. With Ursula von der Leyen, Europe is today safer within its borders than we were 5 years ago. We do not depend on Russia for our energy anymore. We are stronger and more independent. We are greener, more digital, and more competitive. We are more modern, and we will continue to invest more in research and innovation, as we have heard today. To continue delivering for the citizens of Europe, we need to strengthen our union and its tools. One of the most important tools that we have is the budget of the European Union. And I would like to highlight the strategic importance of the upcoming Commission proposal for the budget of the European Union post-2027. This should preserve the basic architecture and the logic of the budget and take fully account the Parliament's view. The budget is our main investment tool. It has to be protected and strengthened. And to ensure predictability, we need own resources for the Union. And President von der Leyen, we fully support your approach. Whoever wants European funds has to respect European values. This is why, dear colleagues, I say today, if we ask people to believe in Europe, we need to show as parliamentarians that we believe in Europe, in our democracy, in our rules and values, and vote for our Commission President. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Muresan. Next, Helene Fritzon, 1 minute.
Fru talman, fru von der Leyen. Att få stopp på
Thank you, President. Ms. von der Leyen. Stopping Putin's war, more support to Ukraine, ramping up ambition when it comes to combating climate change. All of these are key things, but we need more cooperation within the European Union. We must close the door against to far-right parties. So we welcome your commitment regarding reaching the climate objectives. Well, 90% by 2050 isn't enough. We as Social Democrats can show the way, we can lead the way for Europe to become the first climate-neutral continent. And we welcome the new equality strategy, a commissioner for equality and a roadmap, yes. But for all of this to be strengthened, we need to have it in the very foundation of the legal system in Europe.
Well, thank you, thank you. I don't think you need to say that you're going to be a president of all of us, since you didn't come and speak to some of the political groups who represent millions of voters. Well, as a matter of fact, you concluded your election campaign, then all the good intentions disappeared on this whole Green Deal issue. Somebody may have believed you, but the agreement with the Greens brings us back to the times of Timmermans. So apart from the fact of whether this is going to be a smooth term, the centre-right is supporting you, but then you've asked for the support of the Greens and to strengthen the Green Deal. So La Lega says no, very clearly, no to Mrs. von der Leyen. Nothing personal. Please don't take this personally, because I think that we could be close. But to be president of the Commission, that's a different story. Thank you.
Senhora Presidente,
President, dear colleagues, good governance is the best antidote to the extremes. It's important not to forget what's happened over the past 5 years. They've been 5 difficult years, years of a pandemic, of fear, of the cost of living crisis, and 5 years marked by war. But with dialogue compromises, we've been able to overcome these challenges. We've moved forward more than ever in the area of health. We have rebuilt our economies. We are moving forward together in defence, and the face of this good governance is Ursula von der Leyen. We are trying to give real solutions to real problems, for example, in relation to cost of living, in staple goods, in food, in transport, and very important in the right to housing, democracy, health and defence. This is the governance that we need. This is the governance that Ursula von der Leyen needs to implement, obviously with the coherence of sticking to her word and choosing the path of moderation. We need to negotiate, but never forgetting our convictions. We have the responsibility to continue moving forward with an ambitious reform programme which allows us to address the challenges that we face, because, and I said this at the beginning, the best antidote to the extremes is good governance. So therefore, in the European Parliament and the European Commission, let's continue focus and making good governance our motto.
Temido, 1 minute.
Obrigada, Senhora Presidente. Thank you, Madam President, Ms. von der Leyen. Over the last few days, we all worked very hard to make sure that the package of nominations for the high posts of the European institutions, but also the commitments towards European citizens, would be respected. And today we learned about your programme for the next mandate. We welcome the steps that were taken to come closer to our agenda: employment, housing, and green and digital transitions. We can recognise our flagship policies here, but we have high expectations. Europeans have high expectations for the next 5 years. On top of ecological green pact, we need more of a social pact. We need, in addition to regular migration, more humanism. We also need peace for Israel and Palestine, as well as peace for Ukraine. We will not let down or falter on our commitments, but that challenge begins today, and we will be following very closely your actions in the next few years. So our support is a message of hope, but also a call for responsibility to make this Europe a reality. Thank you.
Quite a lot behind time. We'll see where we arrive to in 5 minutes. Lukasz Kohut first.
Madam President, I'm very happy you wanted to be a candidate for the President of the European Commission again. In this term of office, we will be speaking incessantly about security. Our main task will be to secure the sky above the houses of Europeans and secure peace. But I'd like to pay attention to other aspects. We need to prolong the time to use Next Generation EU funds. Local government activists, not only from Poland, talk about this, and I think prolonging by 2 years the application of those funds would be a good solution. Second of all, protection of minority languages and minority communities. It's time to go back to that project because still in Europe there are communities like my own, Silesian, that need protection from Europe. And third of all, notification of the social contract, transformation, remembering about humans and the European industry.
Predsednica, zadnjih 5 let ni bilo lahkih. Mandat je bil zaznamovan s krizami, vojno na evropskih tleh, covidom, kot tudi naravnimi.
Well, there's not been easy over. It's been a very difficult 5-year period. We need to make sure we focus on our successful outcomes as well. We have Schengen, you didn't mention that. We also have the rule of law. You didn't speak about internal borders of the European Union. Measures have not been taken as they should have been. You apply certain rules, but there are double standards. They're not always applied in the same way. In Gaza, you don't respect the rules. You look at what you do. When it comes to refugees, when you look at the UN agencies, when we talk about the thousands of Palestinian victims, we're witnessing a genocide. What measures do you think should be taken? You talk about supporting the Palestinian Authority, but how are we moving forward?
Presidente von der Leyen, non l'ho votata.
Mrs. von der Leyen, I didn't vote for you 5 years ago. And having heard you, I will state again that I won't vote for you. I mean, you shouldn't just say that you have been the protagonist of 5 years of disaster. You keep talking about the future. We will do, but, you know, 5 years, the citizens have already judged you. We want something that is closer to reality, less ideology, and less of what we had over the last 5 years, disastrous policies. The new Green Deal would just put a lot of production centres in crisis. So a logic of building these bunkers, you have failed, Madam von der Leyen. You're not the answer to the problems of Europe. I think you are the cause of these problems.
Anna Zalewska.
Anna Zalewska. Madam President, dear colleagues, Madam Commissioner, you did not speak the truth. You are saying it's good and it's going to get better. No, it's bad and it's going to get worse. The EU is in an economic crisis, and it's not only because of the pandemic and the war, but also ideological policy of the European Commission, who, without any calculations, take decisions on ambitions and indicators. You are talking about 90% of emission cuts by 2040, despite the fact that the European Environment Agency is informing you that the objectives for 2030 are impossible to achieve. The cost of living for citizens, for Europeans, is rising. You do not deserve to be the president. And after the court decides, you should give up your candidature. Thank you.
Madame la Présidente, les faits sont là.
Madam President, the facts are right here. You were the first President of the European Commission to have been pro-environmentalist, and you were the first person to truly defend a climate transition for our children's future and our grandchildren's future, and I thank you for that. We should all thank you for that. Right from the start of your term, when you made your commitment, you put into place a huge environmental project. I'm thinking about the Green Deal, the farm to fork strategy, the CO2 and pesticide use, reduction targets, but also biodiversity protection and so many others. Now, those ambitions were lowered subsequently, and those issues were largely absent from the election campaign. So my question is clear, Ms. von der Leyen. Will you be as ambitious as you were 5 years ago? What can you do to catch up the time that's been lost so that future generations can live and inhabit a healthy planet?
She's not here? Okay, then we... Is she there? Okay. Marie Toussaint. No. Okay. Then we close. And I give the floor to Madame von der Leyen.
Thank you, Madam President, honourable members. I want to thank you for this debate. And I also want to thank you for the very rich dialogue we had in the last 2 weeks. And I want to address all those who are pro-European, pro-Ukraine and pro-rule of law. We may certainly not agree on everything, but we should all agree that Europe is stronger when we bridge our differences and when we join forces. Whether you have been a member of parliament for long or this has perhaps been the first debate in this hemicycle, the people of Europe have chosen you to be their voice. They have entrusted you with their hopes, their daily fights, their aspirations, and you have brought them here in this house that holds together our union, our home. And I've listened to you today, but of course also in the last weeks since the elections. We had many, many encounters. Now, I gave a long speech, a very long speech. I know this was a lot. If I would try to answer in detail to all the questions, I would have to hold at least this speech again, longer. But why don't we give each other a bit more time to discuss that? And what I've done is I put all these topics in the political guidelines. So there you find many, many of the answers to the questions that you have posed to me. And if you give me your trust, I would be honored to turn all these actions into reality together with you. So therefore, thank you very much for the rich debate. I hope to have your trust and confidence for the next years. Long live Europe. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So the debate is closed, dear colleagues, and we resume for the vote at 1 p.m.